19 days out of Yokohama, we were practically drifting toward Saipan at 6 knots an hour. The convoy consisted of 5 old Bonita vessels. Our engines were in poor shape. We carried badly needed supplies to our island outposts. We were fishermen, proud to be drafted into service, and had 2 soldiers posted on each boat. No need for more, we thought. We were not prepared for defeat. Who is? The lead boat, the Heskimaru, was captained by an old salt who knew nothing about this watery arena. His maps showed some 2,000 islands, like sprinkled crumbs on a vast surface. We were now passing the Mariana Archipelago. Once it had belonged to Spain, then to Germany, and finally to Japan, and we intended to keep it. This tropical world was a geological joke of coral and volcano. Some islands lasted, some disappeared. Some were inhabited, others were not. Who'd want to live there anyway? This giant body of water and all that was in it was ours. Our belief in victory was unshakable. We had stopped looking at the stepping stones that paraded by. They were of no interest. We wanted to return home. We now sighted Anatahan, a jungle rock that stood high out of the sleeping waters. So it was duly recorded in the log. 6 in the morning, June the 12th, 1944, the 4th year of a war to which we had dedicated our lives like children, playing a game without vision or foresight. Four bells, and our chief cook and bottle washer appeared promptly with asameshi, breakfast for the skipper. His American sailor's hat was a reminder of a defeated enemy ship. At first, we thought it was one of our own planes. The barren map of the world makes no note of where misfortune strikes. We went down fast. Few survived. The Mariana Trench, over which we swam ashore, was over 35,000 feet deep. The fiery center of the earth had blown this rock of Anatahan a long way from the ocean floor. How we got ashore, no one remembered. We were dumped like garbage on a hot coast, left to rot. The change from a human being with dignity to a helpless worm takes but a second. A merciful narcosis kept us from suffering too much. One of the men had not only saved his hide, but accomplished the heroic feat of bringing a machine gun ashore. A warrant officer with a long service record, he was the only one who knew what to do. To defend this island for a couple of months was not a difficult task, he thought. He knew the enemy, and he knew the Imperial Navy would not permit us to stay abandoned very long. Yes, we had picked the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, deep and solemn. And we were to be here for 7 long years, and little did we know that the enemy was not in planes overhead. Nor was it the lack of food, the lack of water and medicine, nor the venomous plants that hemmed us in. How could we know that we had brought the enemy with us, in our own bodies, an enemy that would attack without notice? One of our men had spotted a deserted village. This was good news after many weeks of hardship. And so we entered the twisting, haunted labyrinth of an unfamiliar jungle A beautiful but vicious world from which many of us never returned. What sort of a Japanese was this? His name was Kusakabe. Said he lived alone on the island. The others had left when the war started. He'd been plantation foreman, exported copra, but the jungle had taken over. An unfriendly man. Unfriendly to us and unfriendly to himself. Imagine living on an island like this by choice, thousands of miles from nowhere. That's how we met Keiko. At first, she was only another fellow human being stranded on this pinpoint on the map. Then she was to become a female to us. And finally, a woman, the only woman on Earth. The horizon stayed empty and remote. We lost track of time. The rains had started. They seemed never to end. We built boats, toy boats to carry us home on the wings of our longing. This lonely island was our whole world. We went to sleep at night and dreamt of home. Each morning, we were back on Anatahan. Like a rare bird of the wet jungle, we caught an occasional glimpse of Keiko. Some of us, sooner than the others, longed for something more than bread alone, and we watched her. And we watched each other. stopped. Nothing lasts forever, though the waves of the ocean lasted long. First thing we did, when the hot rays of the sun came again, was to build a Shinto shrine to speed our prayers. Most of us believed in Shintoism. There were 2 Christians, 4 Buddhists. Others believed only in Japan. We extracted salt from the sea, hunted lizard and bat, found wild potatoes, lived on food that pigs would have rejected. But best of all, we found a way of making fire. We had sunk to the level of prehistoric man, but our progress was not slow. We achieved in weeks what the caveman had taken centuries to accomplish. And so we faced our new life, halfway between Japan and New Guinea on a deserted sea lane, 1,500 miles from the Philippines, some 16 degrees above the equator, resigned to wait. The first typhoon struck us with an unjust fury. What had we done to reap all this? Why did man and nature conspire to make us helpless? The rocks that were so formidable when we crawled ashore were pebbles now in a giant sea. It raged for 3 days. The elements are cruel. To the winds and to the sea, man and his problems is as nothing. A typhoon pounded at us. The ocean wanted to wipe us out. This island rock that was anchored firmly to the bottom of the deep sea seemed to tear loose and join the storm. One year on Anatahan. This was our home now. 3 miles long, 1 mile wide, most of it impenetrable. We stood guard in turns to wait for our navy to come. It never came. For the enemy to come. He never came. Nothing came but the waves. The tides lifted and the tides fell. We now took another step away from prehistoric man. We had found empty beer bottles, and now we found a way of filling them with coconut wine. If we drank quickly before it turned to vinegar, it made us forget where we were and who we were. We were scolded, of course, but since when has alcoholism been cured by scolding? Who are you combing your hair for? For you, naturally. Was she combing it for him? Takahashi was the first one to break the social ice. He brought a peace offering. More shells for the wife, as if she needed them. At that time, we still thought they were man and wife, and we had not yet become savages. The difference between a child and a grown-up is in the way the brain is in control of the emotions. Kusakabe objected to anyone paying attention to Keiko. That was easy to diagnose. More difficult to understand was why he was so antagonistic to us and to himself. Our leader, the boss of the island, that is, boss for a while, was not opposed to a display of his authority. Some men are drunk on wine, some are drunk on power.
すいません、お邪魔して。
帰れ。
はい。
何しに来たんだ。
そんなことなくてじいじゃありません。
帰れ。
So far, all these things that happened to us on Anatahan were very small. Our life now consisted of nothing but trifles. How were we to know what was important and what trifle was not? She was a pretty woman. She was a Japanese woman, trained to obedience. When she was young, she followed her father, never dreamt of walking at his side. When she married, she walked behind the husband. Obedience to a husband is considered to be the prime virtue of Japanese womanhood. The full moon of the autumn equinox is the time for the Ohigan festival, when we pay respect to our ancestors. Our thoughts then go from them to our families. The word Higan means the other shore. It is taken from the Buddhist legend that there is a river marking the division of this earthly world to a future one. This river is full of illusion, passion, pain, and sorrow. Only when you cross the river, having fought the currents of temptation to gain the far shore, do you reach enlightenment. This was the time when we thought of our families far away. This was the time when we thought of our families, all of us. And so did Kusakabe. He had brought with him, when he came, wife and child. At the outbreak of the war, 4 years now, they had left him to go to Saipan for safety. Keiko, too, had had a husband who'd left on the same boat. She, too, had not heard from him again. All this we found out later. Careless as we might wish to be in our relations to other human beings, there is a time of accounting. Left alone in an empty world, it was natural for these two to have formed a bond of sorts. For a time, they had forgotten everything but each other.
何考え込んでらっしゃったの？またお母さんのこと？
Are you thinking of your home? Yes,
でもあなたにお会い
but
しな
not when I see you. She was prepared to hear just that. A long journey begins with one step. Hers was to be quite a long journey. This was Anatahan. We still kept track of the months, though we had forgotten the day of the week. A little while later, no one would care what year it was. Japan had forgotten us. The horizon remained empty and remote. But the circle around Keiko enlarged. She was young. Her body failed to remember the blows it had received. It also slipped her mind. She became better looking day by day. She became Queen Bee, and we, the drones, began to swarm. What's your husband doing? All I know, he's not out looking for another woman. How would you like to be my bride tonight? I don't need two husbands. Coconut wine had become our steady diet. With the coming of wine, discipline vanished. Some of us began to feel strongly about being told to stand guard day and night against an enemy that never came. Who was this man, anyway, who never allowed us to forget what it meant to be a Japanese soldier? All this talk of stand up and salute became more and more pointless. It took him years to achieve his position. It took seconds to lose it. Typhoons in human beings strike without much warning. There are few signals, and only the skilled, the very skilled, can read them.
おいいいよ。
何すったの？これでちっとおとなしくなっとる。助けてくれてすまんかったな。
The loss of face to a soldier in command is not a pleasant experience. To lose the respect of our fellow men is not pleasant to anyone, anywhere. A good part of our life is spent in trying to gain the esteem of others. To gain self-esteem, however, we usually waste little time. We had thrown off the yoke of discipline. We were free, free of all restraint, which only meant that we were slaves to our bodies. A folk song from Okinawa, the Tsundarabushi had spread like a weed among the soldiers during the war. You and me, like an egg. I'm egg white, you're egg yellow. I embrace you. The day started with a dispute over the words of a song. How the day would end, no one knew at the time. We were looking for trouble, and we found it. Keiko, Keiko, come out, come out. Those were the right words.
何してんだ。今度の。
Simba was 19, with the beard of a man and the brain of a grasshopper. He was next in line for Keiko's favors. We gave little thought to our actions. There is no medicine against stupidity, and it was epidemic among us.
の連中はみんなこう言ってるの知らないってことないだろう。
私のせいじゃないわ。
じゃあその会は何だ。
何でもないわ。
この会でぶったたいてやろうか。
どうぞ。
おしこっちできねえ。まあいやこの頃どうかしてるな。うんいいわ。少しくるだけはこの何やってんだ。何やってんだ。まだわからんか。お前はまだわからんのか。みんな入ってろ。そうバカ言って何が面白いんだ。
おめえはケイちゃんを殴って楽しんでるじゃねえか。俺たちが何をして楽しもうと大きなお世話じゃねえか。
俺のそういうこと何も解消することないじゃないか。
お前のうちのことを解消して悪かったら俺たちが外でやってることを干渉する必要ないじゃないか。
おい、おめえ何か俺たちに文句つけよってのか。
みんなうちの女房を構ってるじゃないか。
おめえの女房なんか構っちゃいねえよ。
お前たちはみんな俺たち夫婦をなめてるんだ。
そう興奮しなさい。
興奮したっていいじゃないか。これは興奮せずおかるか。
てめえは黙って引っ込んだらいいんだよ。
貴様が一番悪だ。
やらいつは立ち入れてるんだ。
Then came the unexpected. To all Japanese forces, 3 months ago, the 15th day of August, Japan accepted unconditional surrender. The Japanese emperor himself is asking you to lay down your arms. The war is over. An American ship will take you home. Hostilities have ceased. All Japanese men and officers surrender. Surrender at once.
日本軍の皆さん、3ヶ月前の8月15日に日本の天皇陛下は自ら全面降伏を制しました。戦争は終わったのです。皆さんもアメリカ側の船に乗れば日本へ帰ることができます。今後は絶対に戦争行為はありません。日本軍の皆さん、一日も早く
The unbelievable had happened. This could not be true. We had just begun the war. We were prepared to fight for 1,000 years. We'd overrun Asia, almost the entire Pacific. How could we have lost so suddenly? This was an enemy trick. It could fool no one. We came to ask him to lead us again. There are those who lead and those who wish to be led. There is not necessarily any other bond between them.
何しにここへやってきたんだ。
昨日の降伏勧告聞いたでしょ。我々はあんたの意見を聞きに来たんです。
あんなものは敵の謀略だ。
我々もそう思ってここへやってきたんです。一つ我々の指揮を取ってくれませんか。
今さら俺に用はねえだろう。
すいません。あの時は酔っ払ってたもんで。
なんだその謝り方は。貴様上官に対する礼を忘れたのか。軍人らしく敬礼しろ。はい。
The sacred soil of Japan cannot be conquered. So long as we have one drop of blood in our veins, we will not give up. Rather die than surrender.
全員命のある限り戦うまでだ。はいはい。そうだそうだ。
But far away in Japan, our country had faced the reality of defeat. The emperor had called the troops home, and millions streamed back, away from the nightmare of trying to conquer a world. Father and son, wife and husband, mothers, daughters, friends, all those who had feared they might never meet again. The men who had fought in vain came back home. Though there were many that did not come back. But we knew nothing about what took place in a new Japan. We were still on Anatahan, deserted by the world, defending this volcanic rock, defending it against what enemy? The only real enemy most of us ever have is lonesomeness. The jungle had disgorged a rare prize. An enemy plane had been found wrecked. The bodies vanished. This was a doubtful reminder of civilization. We fluttered around this sudden gift from the skies like vultures. What could we find to make our life better? Some of the things were to make our life worse. Nishio found a .45 caliber weapon and a few bullets. Yananuma, too, hit the jackpot. Keiko found a parachute, which meant elegance for us instead of clothes made of tree bark, or no clothes at all. Senba, our friend the lady killer, found a ring, the easy way to a woman's heart. This lifeless mass of iron was the only sign of life from the outside world so far. Maruyama was seaman first class. Before joining the Navy, he had been a first-class musician. He had an idea how to make use of rusty wire. He was to convert a war machine into a musical instrument. This was the first shot heard on the island. It was not to be the last one. 2 old pistols, 2 new masters. Keiko was gone. She had been absent all night. This was a serious defection. Keiko missing? Kusakabe was more out of his mind than usual. Away from all our troubles, our now useless leader kept a machine gun ready to shoot. This gun was never to shoot. Our search party went into action. Something must have happened to Keiko. Was she dead? We were too stunned to count the men that were missing.
Keiko! Keiko! Keiko!
Keiko was not dead. Far from it. She was very much alive. This was the beginning of a new pattern on Anatahan. Keiko had gone into circulation. To spy on the humiliating details of another human being's life would be unforgivable, were we not concerned in finding a clue to our own behavior. Nothing that happens to a human being is alien to us. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Negishi and his friend are not uncommon among those we know. They had guns now to take the place of thinking. Of course they had seen no one. Why should they reveal her whereabouts? They had plans of their own. We had now been on this island for a long time. For all we knew, we would be there forever. It is easy to look back and label all this commotion about Keiko ridiculous. What we did there, we might not have done somewhere else. Opinions differ on that point. It is said that human beings react according to a set pattern, whether they are in a primitive or a civilized society. Maybe so. To look back on something is not the same as living with it.
Keikoはどこだ？てめえで探したらいいだろうよ。お、金張りの野郎だ。どうして俺のとこに逃げるんだ？だってあんたはブツばっかしじゃないの。もう汚いから家へ帰れ。いやよ、まだブツに決まってるわ。
The relationship between a man and a woman is based on emotions which often may not be understood by others, who in one way or another fumble just as much. It is easy to see what wrong others do. We carry no mirror to reflect our own actions.
帰りましょう、うちへ。
She was clearly the winner this time. A bargain had been made. When a woman threatens to leave, this has considerable influence on the behavior of a man, even when she's not the only woman on earth. Our leader took the occasion to lecture on our behavior. Our mission was to defend Anatahan, not to drink and chase after females. Someday the enemy would appear. But the enemy was on Anatahan. Man's genius to destroy himself was in clear evidence. The day began with a harmless little ditty, a prelude to violence. Keiko wanted to be taught how to play the shamisen. What about your husband? But she knew how to handle him now. One more blow out of him and she would leave him again. We were all in bondage to Keiko, some more and some less. She was the center of our universe. We had no one to call our own, no one to care for us. It is not good for man to be alone. Was the oldest sailor among us, and he confirmed our suspicions about the marital status of Keiko and Kusakabe, as if legalistic technicalities made any difference anymore in Anatahan society.
どうして帰ってこな
It
い
was he who noticed the photograph and told us about it later.
あなたさんと可愛い子供さんだ
There
な
was no law on our island, no police. There were only 2 pistols.
なんだお前たちも来てケイちゃん呼んだのか
私は呼ばないわよ。
待ってんだよこれおいおいとはなんだ
何すんの？お稽古してるのに。
Not so long ago, these 2 had been members of the Imperial Navy, disciplined and polite. But the Navy was all but forgotten. And forgotten was what they had once been. But they were still human beings, and that classification is sufficient to cover quite a variety of behavior.
先輩は高橋ばかりが男じゃねえじゃねえか。
お前たちは何してたんだ。
ダメだわ。この子見つかったら大変。ね、どっか行って。ね。ね。早く早く。
ちょっとそのお邪魔いたしました。
丸山や黒田を引っ張り込んで何してたんだ。
三味線のお稽古してたの。
三味線なら俺が教えて
Certainly
やる。
Kusakabe had promised not to beat Keiko, but in turn he reminded her that she had promised not to fool around with others.
またお楽しみだね。
The 2 gunmen suggested that they settle their differences, where they could be under scientific observation.
お前たちは何だ。そのうち黙って出てこんできて出てってくれ。
俺たちはだ
They
な。
had an idea.
のためにええこと考えてきた。
Keiko was able enough to cook for 4 as easily as for 2.
あんた方夫婦に俺たちの声して一緒に住まってもらおうと思う。
Kusakabe could provide food if he wanted to be friendly.
料理するのに2人分でも4人分でも大した違いはねえやな。
その女房どうしとってんだ。
あんた私
She
のこと
did not object too much. It would have done little good if she had.
俺たちはさ、4人で仲良く一
Now
緒に。
these were no longer trifles. The knife and the bullet had become law.
食べさえ構わなければどっちでもいいのよ。
ああ、坂部さんが反対することはねえや。な。さあ、とうとう話が決まったら電話してくれた。さっさと支度しようぜ。さあ、おめえさんも行ってくれた。
So the queen bee kept house for 3 drones.
姉ちゃん、なんか頼むぜ。どうだい、俺たちはじゃいいだろう。楽しくやろうぜ。
At all these events that began now, we were not present. We were not inside that hut. There is no way to check the story of violence that now unfolded swiftly. Even had we been there, all our versions would differ.
こんなのほら日本にいたちゃ食えねえや。おう。はい、坂部さん、食べなよ。おう。食べてちょうだいよ。
One man who did try to check what occurred on the Hill of Fools, as we subsequently called this corner of the jungle, was our old friend,
負け
Senba.
ちゃってるよな。旦那さんだ。ケイちゃん、飲みね。坂部のことなんか心配すんね。ケイちゃん、あっち行かいよ。いいじゃねえか。
A little while later, his body was found in a swing where only a week before he had enjoyed the company of Keiko. We can only guess how he got into that hammock. can only surmise how a second body came to be found on that hill.
この間何してたんだよ。
何もそうムキになることはねえだろうよ。
この女は俺のもんだ。お前でもってね、出てるそれ。
2 bullets, very deep in Nishio's back, helped us to guess correctly.
冗談だ。今だ。
In some parts of Asia, there is a god of immediate retribution whose function it is to spare us long delays in deserved punishment. Had he decided to become the deity of Anatahan? Anyway, death was fishing in this jungle, and on his hook, as bait, he dangled Keiko. So we buried our 2 victims of our ill-fated mission with due Shinto ceremony. A little part of us went down with them into the moist ground. We felt sorry for the dead. Even an insect an inch long has half an inch of soul. Time had stopped for these 2, but our miserable existence continued. We had now been on Anatahan for 5 years. 5 years can be short. For us, they were endless. Days can be as fatal as bullets. All that kept us alive was the thought of our country, our fatherland. Somewhere to the north was another island, an island that we loved and longed for and could never forget so long as we had breath in our bodies. We celebrated the New Year like good Japanese soldiers. We paid our respect in the direction of the Imperial Palace and sang our national anthem. We wished each other a happy new year, omedetou gozaimasu, and as if nothing had happened, thanked each other for the friendship of the past year and hoped, courteously, that this year would be as pleasant as the last.
生意気のできないですか。言うのも一個。分かったよ。先生。なんだよ。おい、やめろったらやめろ。せっかくの正月だ。お前たちは飲め飲め。あんな面白くもね、みんな飲み直しや。うちにあるし、踊るなら俺のために踊ってくれよ。
やあよ。
おいったら。入れよ。
しょうがないわね。
At all this too, no one else was present. We can only reconstruct the events from which we were barred. The king and queen had left our festival. That we knew.
やめてよ。
あんまりじらすと怒るぞ。
But we never saw the king again. He had been marked for death indelibly long ago. The only thing we did not know was who would be the executioner. Now Kusakabe was royalty. Anatahan had a new overlord, a new king for a short time only. She followed him obediently. But this was a travesty of obedience. Obedience at the point of a gun is no obedience at all. We put Yananuma to rest with the others. He died young. He had no chance to learn how to live properly. Someday he would bring his ashes back home and lie to his people that he had died like a good soldier honorably. The queen had returned to the beehive, but there was little rejoicing. They should have attended the funeral. We do not beat the dead.
どうして俺をイライラさせるんだ。
やっぱり柳の松を引き出た方が良かったんじゃないかしら。死んだもんに罪はないんですもん。
When human beings wish to quarrel, they soon find a cause. The litany is of no consequence. This time, it was no food in the hut. Why doesn't he go out and get some? There was no love in the hut also. Next in line was the ex-cook of the Heskimaru, Yoshiri. He aspired to Keiko. The goal of his ambitions was not very lofty. We are driven by forces about which we know nothing. The king is dead. What price the new king? How long will the tyrannical house of Yoshiri last?
あいつはいらねえ人間だよ。スルー、酒はどこにあるんだ？
He was to wield his power over Anatahan for less than 24 hours.
会うんじゃねえ。今日からおめえは俺の女房だ。騒ぐとボラすぞ。
Keiko was his, and all the coconut wine he could guzzle. Untold riches. But the queen was not to be his. She had not been partial to the murder of a previous consort. The bond between them had been strong, whatever the nature of the elastic might have been that binds together male and female. He wanted her as queen and handmaiden, no insolence. He was not going to have a cup thrown at his feet. Would he have laughed quite so much had he known that he would not see the light of another day? All of us remember that night. The moon was low. The trees silent, the air was full of mist. The sea was deep, the rocks black. Nature was indifferent to the cruel destiny of man. This unfortunate is the history of an American sailor's hat. The two pistols were thrown into the ocean. They were gone. There was to be no more bloodshed. We chose Keiko peacefully. That is, peacefully for us.
Oh, 外れちゃった。
But Keiko was not going to be chosen, peacefully or otherwise. She was through. We started a hunt for the prize that this time had been won in fair competition. The foe had found us. The long looked-for enemy. We were to be bombed, we thought. For this we had been trained. This was a simple matter. Japanese army on Anatahan. The bombs that had dropped told us that war had been over for 5 years. A vessel would call and take us home. This was, of course, another crude enemy trick. What did they think we were? Children?
5年前に終わったのです。アメリカと日本は再び友好関係を持つようになりました。こんなバカなこと。
ほなどうでもいいから。
This was hardly the time for love letters from the enemy. Let's find our Keiko. This method of persuasion had worked exceedingly well in old Baghdad and in ancient Rome, and it could not fail to work in our culture. We did not see this. We never saw her again. She disappeared as if she had never existed. Long ago, I heard her say that if she had wings, she would fly home. Keiko had gone. There was no more trouble. There was also no more life. Then, a year later, a ship came, and a white flag was found in our jungle burial ground.
Oh, 白旗だ。奴らここやってきやしたな。え?
Letters from Japan.
確かにうちの女房の筆跡だ。子供からも来たよ。ほらほらほら。ごっつんも来たよ。
高橋。はい。土井さん。
来るだ。
This one was from Keiko.
あ、ケイちゃんからだ。ケイコ？なんて書いてある？
She had notified our families, told them that we were alive. Kuroda had no family, so she thoughtfully thanked him and said she hoped her departure had brought no trouble to him. This was embarrassing, but definitely not an enemy trick.
お願いしました。私はあなたに手紙を書く家族がいないのを知ったので、私が代わりに書きます。どうもありがとうございました。稽古より。
There was another letter from the governor of a prefecture. The war had ended 6 years ago. Your families are waiting. This flag we send surrendered a Japanese regiment. Use it. We want you home. You can return if you wish. I will never go back to a defeated Japan. The rest of us surrendered gladly. We had lost the Battle of Anatahan. Our days of hardship had ended. We soared like eagles over our sacred mountain. It took 10 hours to retrace a journey of 19 days and 7 long years. We were back in Japan, heroes to all but to ourselves. Brother and sister were there. Our friends were waiting. Father and mother. Our neighbors came. We saw our wives. Our children, now 7 years older, we would have to earn their affection all over again. We were home at last. And if I know anything at all about Keiko, she too must have been there.
正月だ。おめえたちは飲め飲め。
あんな面白くもね、みんな飲み直しだ。